They should never have landed here. Every warning sign in the universe told them to stay away. Every fragment of history whispered the same message. This place is not for the living. Yet the ship pierced the atmosphere, ignoring the scars of fire etched across its sky, and the crew stepped onto the soil of a planet spoken of only in rumors. Imagine walking across a surface that feels like it resents your presence, where every stone and every gust of wind carries the weight of forgotten tragedies. That's the first thing they noticed. The planet was not silent, it was listening. This is not the story of discovery, it is the story of intrusion. They were not welcome here, and the air itself seemed to know it. When the ramp lowered and the first boot touched the ground, the silence broke in a way that felt almost intentional, as though the world had been waiting for this exact moment. Think about that for a second. A planet, vast and lifeless in appearance, aware enough to anticipate the arrival of strangers. What could possibly live in such a place? Or worse, what could remember? The crew didn't come for adventure. They came for answers. Somewhere in the encrypted archives of their mission briefing, buried behind layers of false data, was a note from a forgotten expedition. It spoke of anomalies, of strange signals, of coordinates that should never have been published. They thought they were chasing science. They were chasing echoes of a past so dangerous that even speaking of it had been forbidden. And yet, here they were, standing on a surface no one should ever stand upon, breathing an air no one should inhale, daring to uncover secrets no one should ever wake. The danger wasn't immediate. It revealed itself slowly, the way shadows stretch longer before night fully arrives. First, the instruments began to falter. Nothing drastic, just subtle errors, small miscalculations, strange readings that contradicted each other. A compass spinning without direction, a scanner detecting structures that vanished when approached. At first, they laughed it off. Space travel was always unpredictable, and malfunction was nothing new. But then the laughter faded when the anomalies stopped being technical and became personal. One of the crew swore they heard voices in the static of their comms. Another reported shapes moving in the haze, only to vanish when the others turned to look. Paranoia spread like a disease. Yet, no one wanted to admit it. They had landed, and now the question wasn't whether they should have come, but whether they would ever leave. The planet doesn't need to attack them. It doesn't roar or strike with violence. Instead, it seeps into their minds, making them doubt what is real, erasing the line between memory and hallucination. Every explorer knows that isolation can break a person, but this place doesn't isolate. It suffocates. It reshapes perception until even the strongest mind becomes fragile. And that was only the beginning. This is the tale of a crew that dared to tread where no one should, unraveling not only the mysteries of a forbidden world, but the fragile limits of human resilience itself. What they discover here will not just challenge their survival, it will question the very definition of life, of time, and of truth. You may think this is just another story of space gone wrong, but it is not. This is the story of the planet no one should ever visit. And now, you're about to walk with them. The ship's ramp lowers with a groan, and the hiss of pressurized air releases into an atmosphere thick and heavy. The crew stands in silence for a moment, staring at the unknown world stretched out before them. No one wants to be the first, but hesitation feels like weakness. Finally, the captain takes a step forward, his boot pressing into soil the color of ash. A puff of dust rises, curling unnaturally, as if reluctant to disperse, as if clinging to him. It isn't just dirt, it's finer, more granular, almost like ground bone. Each footstep echoes too loudly in their helmets, amplified by nerves rather than sound. The others follow, reluctantly, scanning the terrain with wide eyes. The surface stretches endlessly, a flat plain, broken only by distant ridges that shimmer in the haze. The ground crunches underfoot, brittle and sharp, leaving prints that seem deeper than they should be, as if the planet is swallowing them 1 inch at a time. The silence here is unnatural. Not the silence of an empty desert or the vacuum of space, but the silence of a place holding its breath. The geologist kneels to gather a sample, and the instrument attached to his wrist flickers, then dies. He taps it, frowns, and tries again. Nothing. It's the first sign that something is wrong, though no one dares to say it out loud. They've barely taken 10 steps, and already the planet is resisting their presence. Inside their suits, heart rates climb. The medic checks her monitor and shakes her head. It shows no readings, as if her body is not even there. She glances at the captain, but he doesn't return the look. His eyes are fixed on the horizon, where something shifts in the haze. Maybe it's the wind, maybe it's the light, or maybe it's not. The air itself feels dense, almost sentient, pressing against their suits like an unseen current. Every breath through the filters tastes metallic, bitter. They exchange glances, unspoken questions flickering in the silence. Was this landing a mistake? Did they just cross a boundary that should never have been crossed? But no one speaks. Not yet. Because admitting doubt would mean acknowledging the whispers in the back of their minds, the same whispers that brought them here in the first place. And already, in these first few minutes on the surface, the planet has begun to change them. Before the landing, before the silence of this cursed world, there was a room filled with artificial light and stale recycled air. The crew sat in rigid rows, the hum of the projector filling the space as images flickered across the screen. Charts, coordinates, a coded message almost too corrupted to read. The briefing officer spoke with a voice stripped of emotion, reciting information in a tone that felt rehearsed, like someone reading a script they didn't believe in. "Officially, this is a reconnaissance mission," he said, clicking through slides that revealed nothing but incomplete data. "Uncharted sector, possible anomalies. Your objective is to collect atmospheric samples, geological scans, and any signs of unusual radiation. Nothing more." His eyes shifted quickly to the captain, and then away, like he was holding back. Everyone noticed. No one mentioned it. What the officer didn't show were the reports buried under layers of classified clearance, whispers of a transmission that had pulsed across deep space decades earlier. A broken signal, fragmented but insistent, repeating the same sequence of numbers. Those numbers pointed to a set of coordinates, the exact location they now approached. Unofficially, this mission was not about exploration. It was about chasing ghosts. One of the crew, the engineer, raised a hand. "Has anyone been there before?" The question hung in the air. The officer's hesitation lasted too long. "Not officially," he replied. The words landed with a weight heavier than the silence that followed. Everyone understood what he meant. Others had come, but their fates were erased, scrubbed from every database, mentioned only in whispers. The medic exchanged a glance with the geologist, both silently wondering why this place had been hidden. Why were they being sent into a region that seemed to repel information itself? If the mission was so standard, why did the officer avoid their eyes every time someone asked about risk levels? Then came the final slide, a grainy satellite image of a planet veiled in storms. No visible cities, no signs of civilization, just a desolate surface marred by craters and fractured ridges. Yet something about it felt wrong. The shadows didn't align with the terrain, as though the planet itself bent light in ways that defied logic. The officer's voice wavered when he spoke the last words. "Proceed with caution. If at any moment the environment seems unnatural, follow protocol and abort." But here's the truth about warnings. The more you hear them, the more they feed curiosity. And in that room, every cautionary word only strengthened the pull. The captain closed the file at the end of the briefing and said, "We're going." That's final. No one argued. Some missions are driven by duty, others by fear. This one was born from both. The memory of that briefing fades as the present presses itself against them. The crew moves farther from the ship, their steps uneven, the ground beneath them fragile and deceptive. It doesn't feel like solid rock. It flexes subtly, like a surface stretched over something hollow. The geologist crouches again, pressing his gloved hand against the soil, and for a moment he swears he feels vibration, like a heartbeat pulsing deep beneath the crust. Then it happens. A tremor ripples through the ground, not violent, but deliberate, as if the planet itself is acknowledging their intrusion. Dust clouds rise, spiraling upward in unnatural patterns before vanishing into the haze. The crew freezes, exchanging looks filled with unspoken fear. Tremors are normal on unstable worlds, but this one carried rhythm, almost like intent. It wasn't random movement, it was reaction. The captain steadies himself, forcing composure. "Keep moving," he says, but his voice cracks slightly through the comms. The medic shakes her head. That wasn't tectonic, that was something else. The silence that follows is heavy. No one disagrees. As they continue, the ship behind them groans as though weighed down by the same vibration. Panels rattle, loose bolts shift. The engineer glances back, tempted to return, but the BUA captain pushes forward. The horizon draws them in, even though every step screams against instinct. Another tremor shivers through the ground, stronger this time. The dust beneath their boots stirs again, not spreading outward but pulling inward, sucked down into fine cracks that open and seal as quickly as they appear. It's as if the planet is tasting them, sampling their presence before deciding what to do. The geologist's voice shakes. Ground composition doesn't behave like this. It's not natural. Sediment. It's reacting. He stops, scanning with his device, but the readings show nothing coherent. Lines of code and numbers stutter across the screen, glitching into symbols he doesn't recognize. The captain interrupts before panic spreads. "Stay calm. It's just the environment. We've seen anomalies before." But even as he says he feels the weight of his own doubt. This wasn't a world acting according to physics. This was a world paying attention. They push forward, but every footstep now feels like trespassing. Every vibration beneath them feels like the planet responding. And somewhere in the haze ahead, as the tremors subside, the ground begins to shift in ways that cannot be explained. As the tremors fade, the captain remembers something buried deep in the classified files, something he never shared with the rest of the crew. It wasn't part of the official briefing, but tucked away in the margins of corrupted archives was a fragment, a log entry from a mission that supposedly never existed. The words had been burned into his mind. Contact was made, but not with us. They listened. They waited. We should not have stayed. The log ended abruptly. No signature, no coordinates, just that warning. The engineer, walking just behind, breaks the silence. "You ever hear the stories?" His voice is light, but everyone can hear the tension underneath. "About the crews that came here before us?" The medic looks at him sharply. "That's classified. You weren't supposed to see that." He shrugs. "You think I'd step onto this dust without knowing what others said about it?" Rumors spread. Data leaks. People talk. They all stop for a moment, the weight of his words pressing harder than the air around them. The geologist, who always mocked superstition, finally asks the question no one wanted to. "What happened to them?" The engineer hesitates, glancing at the captain, but when no objection comes, he continues. "They say one crew sent a signal when they touched down. Clear, strong, repeating at regular intervals. Then, on the third day, the transmission changed. No more coordinates, no more data. Just voices. Dozens of voices, all overlapping, speaking in languages no one could identify. The transmission lasted 12 minutes before cutting to silence. No one ever heard from them again. The records were buried, labeled as equipment malfunction. But those who listened, they swore the voices were crying for help. The medic clenches her jaw, scanning the horizon as if expecting those same voices to rise from the haze around them. "And you thought it was a good idea to tell us this now?" she snaps. But fear has already taken root. Her protest feels hollow, because deep down she knows she wanted to hear it. Curiosity is poison here. The captain finally speaks, his voice low, almost a growl. "Enough. The past doesn't matter. What happened to them isn't what's going to happen to us." He knows it's a lie the moment it leaves his mouth. The planet doesn't just remember, it collects. And as the crew walks forward, they can't shake the image of those lost explorers, swallowed by silence, their last screams still echoing in signals, drifting forever across the stars. The crew trudges across the plain, each step sinking deeper into unease. The silence presses harder, a suffocating weight that seems to thicken with every breath. Then, out of nowhere, the radios crackle. A burst of static tears through the comms, loud and jagged, so sudden that the medic flinches and grips her chest as if stabbed by the noise. "Control! Say again!" the captain calls. But there is no response. The static rises and falls in uneven waves, not random, not accidental. It almost carries rhythm, a cadence hidden beneath the distortion, like words smothered under interference. The engineer tilts his head, straining to listen. "That's not just noise," he mutters. "It's structured." The geologist shakes his head. "It's interference from the surface. Minerals can scatter radio waves." But even as he speaks, he doesn't believe it. The sound is too deliberate, too intentional, each burst separated by silence that feels calculated. Then the medic hears it. Between the surges of static, faint and broken, comes the shape of a voice. It's not clear, not understandable, but undeniably human. A low murmur, fragments of syllables stretching into whispers that dissolve as quickly as they appear. Her face pales, her voice cracking. "Someone's out there." The captain's tone sharpens, commanding. "It's bleed-through, echoes from our own transmissions." But he knows it isn't. The voice didn't belong to anyone here, and worse, it carried a tone that was not a call for help. It was recognition, as though the planet knew their names before they ever spoke them. The static surges again, this time louder, harsh enough to rattle the earpieces inside their helmets. Then it stops. Dead silence. No interference. No noise. The sudden absence feels worse than the sound itself. The medic breathes heavily, gripping her scanner, though it refuses to display anything but distorted symbols. They continue forward, but every step now carries a shadow of doubt. If the voices they heard belonged to the previous crew, then the warning wasn't buried after all. It was still active, pulsing through the air, carried on the very frequencies they thought were their own. The geologist whispers what no one else wants to say. What if we're not receiving? What if we're being answered? As the ship approaches its destination, something strange happens. Alarms flash across the console, not mechanical malfunctions, but a message. Not from the planet, not from deep space, but from the ship itself. The navigation AI, normally silent unless commanded, suddenly speaks. This planet has been marked as forbidden. Proceeding further will result in irreversible consequences. The crew freezes. None of them had ever heard the AI override its own programming like this. They dig into the archives, searching the ship's memory banks. There it is, an ancient encrypted log buried deep in the system. It warns of an expedition centuries ago, one that set foot on this same planet. No one returned. No records explain why. Only a single line remains. Do not land. But the coordinates are already locked in. The ship is on final approach. And now the crew must decide, heed the cryptic warning, or land and uncover what the universe has tried so hard to bury. The ramp lowers, and the crew steps onto the surface. The air is thick, almost viscous, carrying a metallic tang that makes every inhalation taste wrong. Before them stretches a world unlike anything in recorded space exploration. The ground is cracked and jagged, the color of burnt iron, reflecting the hazy light of a distant sun. Mountains rise like jagged teeth in the distance, their peaks hidden in a swirling mist. Shadows move in the corners of vision, yet when they turn, nothing is there. The terrain seems alive. Dust rises in spirals, curling against invisible currents, refusing to settle. Strange formations jut from the ground, geometrical, unnatural, and impossibly precise. The geologist kneels, examining a sample, and the material seems to resist his touch, vibrating faintly under his gloves. Instruments fluctuate wildly, showing energy readings far beyond comprehension, as though the planet itself generates a force field against analysis. Light behaves strangely. Sunbeams bend around shapes, producing distortions that make the horizon appear to shift with each step. Every motion feels disorienting. The medic struggles to recalibrate her equipment, noting that even their suits' environmental sensors register anomalies. Oxygen levels normal, yet lungs feel heavy, hearts beat faster, minds grow anxious without reason. Something stirs in the distance, a low rumble, faint but persistent, vibrating through the ground into their boots. The engineer peers through the scanner and sees nothing tangible, yet the readings spike. Whatever this planet is, it doesn't just exist. It reacts. It watches. Every move they make, every decision they take, is being recorded in some way beyond their understanding. The crew moves cautiously, but curiosity drives them forward. They have landed, despite every warning, and now the question looms over them. What is the cost of walking through a world that should never be touched? Each step is a gamble with unknown odds, and the planet seems to know it. As the crew moves further across the alien landscape, the first signs of abnormal gravity appear. A small rock they kick rolls uphill instead of down. Footsteps feel heavier, then lighter, as if the very ground beneath them is changing density at will. The geologist stops to measure the fluctuations, but his instruments spin wildly, refusing to calibrate. Readings spike, then drop to zero, then spike again, like the planet itself is playing a game. The captain notices it first in his own body. His legs feel unsteady, muscles straining against invisible resistance. He jumps, and instead of landing normally, he floats briefly before slamming down harder than expected. Each movement becomes unpredictable, forcing them to move cautiously. Even the ship, tethered to the ground, subtly shifts as if the planet's gravity field bends around it, tugging in unseen directions. The engineer mutters, "We've entered a region where physics doesn't obey our understanding. Gravity isn't constant here. It's alive, malleable." The medic glances at him, wide-eyed, realizing that it isn't just equipment that's failing. Their perception of weight, balance, even time feels warped. Then they see it. Distant debris from previous missions scattered across the horizon, oddly suspended in the air. Some fragments hang sideways, some seem partially buried, yet remain untouched by erosion. The planet doesn't just pull, it manipulates. It twists matter in ways that defy logic, bending space around objects like they're pieces of malleable clay. Each anomaly forces the crew to reevaluate every step. One wrong move, and they could fall or be crushed by gravity that shifts without warning. The landscape that appeared stable moments ago now feels treacherous, alive, as if aware of each person moving across it. They are no longer visitors. They are participants in an environment that resists intrusion, shaping their fate with every pulse of its invisible forces. The wind picks up, but it doesn't carry the usual sounds of a planet's atmosphere. There is no rustle of leaves, no hiss of sand. Instead, it whispers. Faint, fragmented voices curl around the crew, brushing against helmets, threading through the comms, impossible to locate but unmistakably present. Each whisper is different, sometimes soft pleas, sometimes distorted murmurs that mimic words they almost recognize. The medic halts, gripping her helmet, heart pounding. "Do you hear that?" she asks, but the others hesitate to answer. The sound isn't constant. It ebbs and flows, appearing in the silence between their steps, lingering, long enough to seed doubt. The engineer shakes his head. "It's the wind," he insists, but his voice lacks conviction. Instruments detect only air movement, nothing alive, nothing tangible, but the mind doesn't rely on instruments. It reacts to what it perceives, and perception is what this planet manipulates most cruelly. The whispers intensify near the jagged ridges ahead. Each gust carries a new layer of sound, overlapping with the previous. It's almost a conversation, yet there is no one there. The captain adjusts his visor, scanning the horizon. Shadows play tricks. Edges of terrain appear to twist subtly with the cadence of the voices. Every movement of the crew feels watched, measured, recorded. One of the crew stumbles on uneven terrain, and the wind seems to echo the sound, a distorted mimicry that raises goosebumps along their arms. It's as if the planet is not just reacting, it's mocking. It anticipates their fear, amplifies it, and presses it into consciousness. Even the bravest members cannot deny it. The geologist speaks quietly. This isn't normal. Nothing about this planet's atmosphere behaves this way. The wind, it's alive, or something has made it alive. Their footsteps slow. Every inhale tastes heavier as the whispers swirl around them. There is no escape. Every gust carries a reminder. They are intruders, not explorers. And as the crew ventures deeper into the haze, each whisper leaves them questioning not just the environment, but their own sanity. The moment they step beyond the ridges, the planet's hostility becomes impossible to ignore. The air grows thick, not just dense but charged, tingling against exposed skin beneath the helmets. Every inhalation feels like inhaling resistance itself. The medic checks her instruments, but they fluctuate wildly, unable to stabilize oxygen levels or pressure readings. Nothing about this environment obeys predictable laws. Rocks along their path vibrate faintly, as if pulsing with some internal life. Small fissures along the ground release bursts of gas that shimmer in hues the eye struggles to register, making the crew's visors fog unpredictably. The geologist kneels, trying to take a sample, but as soon as he touches it, the rock shifts, almost sliding away under his hand, and then returns to its original position, as if asserting its own will. They begin noticing textures in the soil that shouldn't exist. Granular formations that rearrange themselves when unobserved. Crystalline patterns that grow and shrink with no discernible pattern. The engineer mutters under his breath that these behaviors are beyond any known physics. Materials that think, respond, and perhaps even anticipate. The sky, too, has its disdain. Clouds gather in formations that mirror the crew's movements. Shadows twist across the ground, not following the sun but curving in ways that suggest deliberate motion. Light refracts unnaturally, piercing the haze, in rays that seem almost accusatory, like fingers pointing at them. Even their own instruments betray them. Compasses spin, scanners overheat, and cameras record only fragments of what the eye sees. It's as if the planet refuses to be documented, refusing to be owned, refusing to be understood. The captain stops and surveys the terrain, realizing the depth of their intrusion. This isn't a world to be explored. It's a world to be survived. Every breath, every step, every glance is met with resistance. The planet does not merely exist, it judges, and it does so with a patience that stretches over millennia. They are intruders in a domain that thrives on disdain, and they have only begun to scratch the surface of its consciousness. As the crew ventures deeper, patterns emerge in the landscape, symbols etched into rock faces, repeating in geometric precision that defies natural formation. At first, they think it's coincidence, erosion shaped by wind or acid rain, but the more they observe, the more deliberate the patterns seem. Triangles nested within circles, lines intersecting at impossible angles, spirals that appear three-dimensional when viewed from a distance. The The geologist attempts to document them, sketching and photographing each formation, but every recording seems flawed. Images warp, angles bend, some symbols disappear entirely when reviewed later. The symbols almost seem alive, shifting subtly as if responding to their attention. It's as though the planet itself is communicating, but in a language older than humanity, a code they are not meant to understand. One formation glows faintly as the sun passes behind it, pulsing with a rhythm that feels like a heartbeat. The medic remarks that it mirrors the tremors they felt earlier underfoot, suggesting a connection between the symbols and the planet's strange vibrations. The engineer speculates that these motifs might function as a warning, a method of controlling intruders or deterring them before they venture too far. The captain studies a particular spiral etched into a cliffside. Its lines curve inward, drawing the eye toward a shadowed crevice. He senses a pattern, a design meant to lead the observer somewhere, or perhaps to trap them. The crew hesitates, knowing instinctively that some part of this planet is aware of their curiosity. Every shadow, every reflection of light, every shifting pattern feeds a growing unease. The symbols are not merely decoration, they are surveillance, guidance, or threat. The planet uses them to teach intruders a lesson. Nothing here is random, nothing here is forgiving, and every step taken is noted by forces beyond comprehension. The deeper the crew moves, the more the motifs dominate their vision, subtly steering thoughts, amplifying fears, and questioning the very nature of their mission. As the crew presses onward, an unsettling realization begins to creep in. Time here does not behave as it should. Watches spin forward and backward simultaneously. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours, yet the sun remains frozen in the same position. The medic checks her vitals repeatedly, only to find heart rates that spike, then drop, as if the planet itself were tugging at the rhythm of life. The captain calls a halt, noticing that their path forward seems unchanged, even though they've walked for what should be miles. Landmarks reappear, familiar yet subtly altered, as if the terrain loops back on itself. The geologist kneels, counting the fissures along the ground, only to find the numbers inconsistent each time he recounts. Nothing is stable. Nothing follows. A predictable sequence. The engineer taps the scanner repeatedly, desperate for some explanation. Energy readings fluctuate wildly, rising to impossible peaks and plunging into voids without warning. It's as if the planet is rewriting physics, he mutters. Every measurement taken 1 second is contradicted the next. Even their instruments seem aware, reacting to presence as though the passage of time itself bends under observation. Voices in the static intensify, sometimes sounding like echoes from their own past, distorted fragments of conversations they've had moments before, or perhaps days ago. Memories feel tangled. Events repeat in loops that no one can trace. A misplaced footstep seems to have already happened, or will happen, and the crew begins to question what is present and what is illusion. The captain clenches his jaw, realizing that survival here isn't just about navigating terrain or withstanding anomalies. It's about staying anchored in a reality that refuses to hold still. The planet doesn't merely resist exploration, it manipulates perception, warping cognition, blurring the line between past, present, and future. Each second is a test, each hour a trap. And the crew begins to understand that on this world, time itself is not theirs to command. As the crew navigates a narrow canyon, movement catches their attention. At first, it seems like a trick of light, shadows, stretching and twisting, but then they see it. A figure, low to the ground, slinking along the fractured rocks. Its shape is fluid, shifting between solid and almost translucent, making it impossible to focus on its true form. The geologist raises his scanner, but the readings come back incomprehensible. Nothing matches any known life form. The air around it seems to ripple subtly, and as it moves, the ground beneath it remains untouched, as if it floats above reality itself. The medic gasps, stepping back instinctively, her helmet shaking slightly with adrenaline. The creature doesn't flee. It watches. Its presence is intelligent, deliberate. The captain signals the crew to hold position, heart pounding. The being tilts what seems like a head, and the crew feels a pressure, not physical, but mental, against their thoughts probing testing boundaries. The engineer whispers, "It's aware of us, aware in a way we've never encountered." Every instinct screams danger, yet the creature does not attack. Instead, it moves in patterns that mirror the crew's steps, shadowing them without advancing. Each glance reveals subtle changes in the landscape, almost like the planet itself reacts to the creature's presence. The crew realizes something chilling. This world doesn't just contain life, it coordinates it. The environment, the anomalies, the whispers, even the gravity shifts. They all seem intertwined with this creature. The planet may be ancient, but this being is its messenger, sentinel, or perhaps its mind made visible. For the first time, the crew understands that they are not alone, not in a conventional sense, and not just in body. Every step from here on will be observed, every action recorded. The planet is alive, and it has sent them a representative to ensure they understand the rules of intrusion, or to decide whether they survive at all. As the crew moves away from the canyon, the horizon begins to change. Mountains that were distant now appear closer, yet their path hasn't shortened. Valleys they just passed re-emerge, twisted and unfamiliar. The landscape stretches and compresses in ways that defy logic, as if the very planet bends space to manipulate perception. The geologist tries to mark landmarks, leaving small sensors in the ground. But when they check back, some have vanished. Others shifted positions. The engineer scans the terrain, but instruments provide inconsistent readings, unable to map the area correctly. Every step forward feels like walking in circles, yet the scenery continues to morph, ensuring that the crew cannot gain true spatial awareness. The medic notices the effect on their senses. Their hearing is distorted, footsteps echo inconsistently. Even shadows move against the light, elongating, shortening, or twisting unexpectedly. The mind struggles to reconcile input with memory, fostering unease and growing paranoia. The captain tightens his grip on the scanner, watching the horizon like a hawk. "Stay together," he warns. "Do not split up. This planet can trick more than your eyes." The crew realizes that this is no ordinary misalignment. The world itself is actively reorganizing, restructuring itself around their movement, as if anticipating every choice and response. In the distance, strange glimmers of light appear intermittently, refracting from unknown sources. They could be minerals, illusions, or something far more sinister. Every anomaly forces the crew to question reality itself. The planet is not passive. It is an active entity, challenging perception and sanity. With each step, the horizon shifts, and with it, the boundaries of what is known and what is unknowable. As the crew pushes through the morphing landscape, a faint signal emerges on the comms. At first, it's barely detectable, a low-frequency pulse buried beneath the static, but then it intensifies, patterned, deliberate. The engineer leans over the console, analyzing the data. "It's repeating," he mutters. "Definitely not random. Someone or something is sending it." The signal isn't coming from the ship, nor from any known satellite or probe. Its origin seems embedded in the planet itself, radiating outward in pulses that interact with their instruments in unpredictable ways. The medic shivers as a distorted voice slips through the comms, fragmented words that sound eerily familiar, almost human. It mirrors conversations the crew had days, or perhaps minutes earlier, twisted by the planet's interference. The captain gestures for caution. "We don't know what we're picking up. Could be a trap, could be residual interference, could be something alive." Each pulse of the signal seems to distort their perception, nudging them toward areas they wouldn't otherwise explore. The geologist notices anomalies in soil composition, where the signal is strongest, as if the planet concentrates energy around these focal points. Then a revelation strikes them. These signals match the encoded logs of previous expeditions. The missing crews, the ones that vanished without a trace, left behind remnants of consciousness, preserved or trapped within the planet's systems. Every pulse is a whisper from the past, a warning, or perhaps a lure, echoing the fates of those who dared to tread here before. The crew feels an unnerving connection, as though they are now participants in a story that began long before their arrival. The planet doesn't merely react, it communicates, weaving together memory, energy, and perception to confront intruders. Listening to the signals is unavoidable, and understanding them may be the only way to survive. Yet the more they decode, the more the planet reshapes itself around them, ensuring no one can truly remain a passive observer. Hours, or is it days, have passed, and the crew begins to feel the weight of the planet not just physically, but mentally. Sleep cycles warp, dreams bleed into reality, and subtle hallucinations taint their perception. Shadows twist into shapes, whispers echo inside their helmets, and each pulse of the alien signal gnaws at the edges of their sanity. The medic notes rising heart rates and inconsistent neural activity across all crew members. She warns that even a brief exposure to this environment could result in cognitive collapse. The geologist rubs his temples, muttering about instruments lying to them, landscapes morphing under their gaze, and memories that no longer align with reality. Even the captain's usually firm resolve begins to crack. Conversations grow strained. Crew members repeat questions they've already asked, forgetting the answers moments later. Paranoia builds silently, seeds planted by the whispering winds, shifting horizon, and signals from the past. Each intruder begins to feel the planet inside their mind, probing, testing, bending perception until they are unsure of themselves, their companions, even the very ground beneath their feet. The engineer reports seeing reflections of themselves in the crystalline terrain, figures moving independently, mimicking their actions with subtle deviations. "It's like the planet knows us," he says quietly. "It's learning." The captain exhales sharply. "We need to stay focused. We can't let it get into our heads completely." But focus is a fragile thing here. Every anomaly, every distortion, erodes certainty. They realize the most dangerous element is not gravity, terrain, or even the alien life. They are the planet's curiosity, its instrument of influence. The longer they stay, the more it manipulates thought, emotion, and perception. Survival requires more than skill or technology. It demands mental endurance, a resistance to an intelligence that can penetrate the mind itself, and the awareness that even a single lapse could prove fatal. Movement in the haze signals a shift in the crew's awareness. Ahead, beyond a cluster of jagged rocks, something moves with intent. It isn't like the previous creature they encountered. This presence is larger, imposing, and undeniably intelligent. Shadows coalesce into a form, humanoid yet impossible in its proportions, limbs bending at unnatural angles, skin shimmering with metallic translucence. The captain freezes, signaling the crew to halt. No one breathes, yet tension builds like a live wire. The figure tilts its head, or what they interpret as a head, scanning them as if reading every thought, every fear. There is no vocalization, yet communication occurs. Thoughts, images, and emotions press into the crew's minds, unbidden. Panic flares, but it is tempered by an overwhelming sense of curiosity. The being does not seek destruction, yet exudes authority, a command over the world itself. The medic grips the geologist's arm. "It's showing us something," she whispers. Flashes of landscapes, past explorers, the signals from the past, all swirl in their consciousness. The creature is not just observing, they are teaching, warning, testing, or perhaps selecting. The engineer murmurs under his breath, "It's the planet, or part of it, a manifestation of its will." The captain takes a measured step forward, understanding instinctively that any aggression would provoke retaliation, unlike anything they've faced. The being shifts, and the air around it bends, creating illusions that distort distance and perspective. Every step they take seems mirrored by terrain changes, as if the planet itself dances to the movements of its emissary. For the first time, the crew realizes the truth. They are not merely visitors. They are participants in a trial. The planet evaluates, reacts, and adapts to presence and behavior. Survival is no longer about tools or technology. It is about comprehension, awareness, and restraint. Every thought, every choice, now carries weight, and the being before them is the ultimate measure of their worth in this alien domain. The creature retreats slightly, guiding the crew toward a narrow passage carved between jagged cliffs. As they follow, the air grows colder, and the whispers intensify. Each sound from the planet echoes unnaturally, repeating moments from their own past conversations, distorted and magnified. Steps they took minutes ago sound as if they are happening again, yet subtly altered, each echo carrying a faint, almost mocking cadence. The geologist notes with unease that even the walls themselves seem to shift. Rock faces elongate, recesses appear where none existed before, and mineral veins shimmer with unfamiliar energy. Every surface they touch vibrates faintly, and the crew senses that the planet records and responds to physical interaction as well as thought. Voices from the past missions intertwine with their own, overlapping into a chaotic chorus. The engineer tries to isolate a signal, but instruments fail to differentiate between actual sound and psychic resonance. Memories they didn't know they had, fears they didn't know existed, begin surfacing. The corridor itself seems designed to strip away certainty, leaving only instinct and fear. The captain slows their pace, aware that every decision carries greater weight. Stay together and stay aware. Do not react to what you hear unless it's tangible. But even as he speaks, the crew realizes that tangibility is relative here. A stone may float one second, fall the next. Shadows may shift direction on their own accord. This passage is a gauntlet, not of physical obstacles, but of the mind. The planet has constructed a space where perception, memory, and reality are malleable, testing their ability to maintain composure. Every footstep is measured, every glance scrutinized. Survival demands understanding that what is seen and heard may not be real, but ignoring it entirely may be just as dangerous. As they emerge from the corridor, the crew steps into a vast open plain bathed in an eerie, shifting light. The ground itself seems to shimmer, as if reflecting not the sun, but fragments of memory. The geologist kneels, noticing faint patterns in the soil that resemble faces, objects, and places from their own lives, scenes they have no conscious recollection of sharing. The medic stumbles, overwhelmed. It's showing us memories, she whispers. Each crew member sees different fragments, some comforting, some terrifying, yet all feel intensely personal, intimate. The phenomenon is not static. Faces fade into landscapes, laughter twists into cries, each memory interacting with the next in ways that challenge linear perception. The engineer warns, this is more than a visual anomaly. The energy readings suggest these are projections tied to our neural activity. The planet is reading us, feeding our thoughts back in distorted forms. Every pulse of the shimmering ground resonates with their heartbeat, amplifying emotion, twisting cognition. Even the captain feels his resolve bending, as long forgotten. Fears emerge alongside moments of hope and failure. Some fragments mirror the lost expeditions. The crew recognizes familiar uniforms, instruments, and partial communications from missions that disappeared centuries ago. The planet intertwines, their memories with those of the vanished, blending past and present until the line between self and history blurs. Every observation becomes a puzzle. Every step is a negotiation with perception itself. The geologist finally speaks, voice tight. We are being tested, measured. This isn't just a planet. It's a sentient archive, cataloging experiences, emotions, and reactions. The crew moves cautiously, aware that any emotional response, any moment of doubt or panic, may influence the planet's next manipulation. Each memory revealed is a lesson, a warning, or perhaps a trap. Survival here is not just physical, it is psychological, a confrontation with the deepest recesses of consciousness in a world that can read and reshape the mind. As they traverse the memory fields, shapes begin to emerge on the horizon, structures that appear solid at first glance, towering above the plane with impossible geometry. They are cities, but not as the crew knows them. Towers twist and spiral in impossible angles, streets fold over themselves, and bridges hover without support. The structures pulse faintly, as if breathing with the planet's rhythm. The captain studies the cities cautiously. They're not on any map. Nothing on the scans confirms them, he says. Instruments fail to lock onto the buildings consistently. When the engineer tries to take readings, the numbers fluctuate wildly, sometimes showing massive mass, sometimes near vacuum. The cities appear and disappear depending on the angle of observation, creating a mirage effect so realistic it fools even the mind. The geologist points out details in the architecture, patterns echoing the symbolic motifs seen earlier, spirals, nested, triangles and fractal designs. These structures, they're deliberate, he whispers, but they're mutable, changing with our perspective or perhaps our thoughts. The medic shudders, feeling that the very air around the cities hums with sentience, observing them. As they draw closer, faint movement within the cities becomes visible. Figures appear, humanoid but distorted, fading in and out like reflections on water. Some seem to mirror the crew's actions, others move independently, performing tasks that are inexplicable yet eerily familiar. The planet has constructed not merely physical space but simulations, mirroring past visitors, previous expeditions, and now themselves. The captain realizes the chilling truth. The cities are not real in a conventional sense. They are interactive projections, a test, or perhaps a trap. The planet uses them to manipulate perception, to challenge sanity, and to communicate on a scale that transcends comprehension. Every step closer is a step deeper into a world that bends reality to its will, where even the concept of permanence is an illusion, and survival demands understanding the difference between what exists and what is imagined. As the crew moves, beyond the mirage cities, the ground begins to undulate subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, but growing stronger with each step. Rocks feel heavier one moment, lighter the next, and even the ship's systems report erratic gravitational readings. The planet's control over physics is no longer subtle, it's undeniable. The captain halts the group, sensing danger. Stay close, watch every step. The geologist scans the area, measuring gravitational anomalies that spike unpredictably. Small boulders hover, then slam into the ground without warning. Footing becomes treacherous, each step carrying the risk of being thrown off balance or crushed. The engineer explains, voice tight, "These aren't natural gravity fluctuations. The planet is creating localized wells, manipulating mass. It can pull, push, or suspend objects at will." The medic notices that even their own bodies feel inconsistent. A hand lifted to adjust a helmet can feel like it weighs a ton, then almost nothing a second later. The crew moves carefully, using ropes and tethers where possible, each step a calculated risk. The gravitational distortions seem aware of movement, responding to shifts in position and pressure. They are navigating an environment that actively adapts to their presence. Suddenly, a boulder rises from the ground, levitating at eye level. It hovers, then darts toward the medic before vanishing into thin air, leaving no impact, no trace. The captain swears under his breath. It's teaching us, testing reaction time, adaptability, and awareness. Every step forward is a negotiation with invisible forces, a trial that demands precision, patience, and acute perception. The crew realizes the planet isn't just hostile, it's intelligent. Gravity is no longer a constant law here. It is a tool of communication, control, and warning. Survival means learning to move in harmony with forces they cannot see or fully understand, or risk being crushed, suspended, or erased entirely by the planet's meticulous will. As the crew continues, a dense fog begins to roll across the terrain. At first it seems ordinary, but then it glows with faint, pulsating light, shifting in hue from cold blues to molten oranges. The fog carries no smell, yet it feels alive, brushing against skin and instruments as if sensing their presence. Visibility drops sharply, and shadows vanish entirely, leaving only the ethereal glow as a guide. The captain motions for silence, and the crew follows, the only sound their careful footsteps. The fog responds, pulsing rhythmically with their movement, contracting when they pause and expanding as they walk. The engineer checks scanners, but readings show nothing consistent. Density, temperature, and composition fluctuate unpredictably. Instruments seem almost hesitant to measure. Within the luminous haze, forms begin to appear. Vague silhouettes that shift with the fog, fleeting images of landscapes, creatures, and people. They are intangible, yet their presence evokes intense emotion, fear, nostalgia, or longing. The medic struggles to maintain composure, realizing that the fog doesn't just obscure, it communicates, reaching into the psyche, probing memories and instincts. The geologist steps forward, cautiously touching the fog. His gloves pass through it like mist, yet a tingling runs up his arm, a faint electric pulse synchronized with the glow. The fog seems to record their actions, absorbing energy from motion, thought, and intent. The crew begins to sense that this is not just atmospheric phenomenon, it's an interface, a medium through which the planet interacts, tests, and teaches. The captain exhales slowly. It's not hiding anything. It's revealing, selectively. Each step becomes an exercise in attention, balance, and restraint. The luminous fog is both guide and obstacle, forcing the crew to confront the environment on its terms. In this place, observation is participation and perception is survival. Every pulse of light carries intention, every movement a message, and the crew must decode the planet's will if they hope to continue without being swallowed by its enigmatic influence. As the crew navigates the luminous fog, faint shapes begin to form within the glow, shadows that move independently, flickering between visibility and invisibility. Slowly, recognition dawns. These are the echoes of the explorers who vanished centuries ago. Their forms are fragmented, incomplete, but unmistakably humanoid. Some replay moments of panic, others act out tasks that seem familiar, yet impossible, as if the past is trapped and looping endlessly within the planet's consciousness. The captain lowers his voice. These aren't hallucinations, they're records, imprints left behind. The medic shudders, realizing that the fog isn't just reflecting light. It's reflecting existence, preserving the memory and energy of those who once dared to tread here. The crew begins to see patterns. Echoes cluster near landmarks, performing repetitive motions, almost as if the planet orchestrates their actions for study. The geologist notices that the echoes subtly react to the crew's presence. Shadows glance toward them, freeze, or retreat, responding not just to movement but to thought and emotion. The engineer attempts to scan for energy signatures, but the readings spike unpredictably. These are not merely ghosts. They are interactive, part of the planet's intelligence, and perhaps a warning system to test intruders. The whispers in the air intensify, blending with visual echoes. Conversations from the past emerge, distorted and overlapping, creating a cacophony of experience and caution. The crew feels watched, not only by the planet, but by every soul it has claimed. Each echo seems to carry a message, a lesson, or a threat. reinforcing the reality that this world is sentient and ever observant. The captain tightens his grip on the scanner, understanding that moving forward means interacting with these echoes carefully. Every choice, every step, now carries the weight of history. The planet's memory is alive, teaching intruders that curiosity without caution comes at a price, and that survival depends not just on action, but on comprehension and respect for the consciousness that permeates every rock, gust of wind, and flicker of light on this unwelcoming world. As the crew leaves the memory fields behind, the terrain dips suddenly into a vast depression. The ground slopes inward, drawing their attention to a central point where the laws of gravity behave unpredictably. Objects roll in every direction, some ascending, some suspended mid-air. The very air feels dense, as though the planet is concentrating its weight in this singular location. The engineer studies the anomaly. It's a vortex, a gravitational nexus. Nothing behaves normally here. Even mass is relative. Rocks twist in spirals, floating upward and downward simultaneously. The crew struggles to anchor themselves, each step a battle against invisible forces, tugging them toward different points at once. The captain signals caution. We need to move deliberately. One wrong step and we could be ripped apart or trapped in the field indefinitely. The medic tests her instruments, only to see fluctuating readings that make it impossible to determine the exact strength or direction of gravitational pull. Every motion becomes a calculation of balance, intuition, and survival instinct. As they navigate, glimpses of the echoes of past explorers appear within the vortex, distorted by the chaotic forces. They replay moments of panic, twisting and stretching as if the planet itself toys with memory and physics simultaneously. The crew realizes that this area is not just dangerous, it's a deliberate trial, a test of adaptability, awareness, and understanding of the planet's intelligence. The geologist observes subtle energy emissions from the vortex, harmonizing with gravitational fluctuations. It's alive, he whispers. It reacts to our presence, learns from us, and adjusts its behavior accordingly. The captain nods grimly. They are no longer simply exploring. They are participants in a challenge orchestrated by a sentient world. Every decision, every movement, every heartbeat matters. Surviving the gravity vortex demands complete synchronization of mind, body, and awareness of forces beyond comprehension. Beyond the gravity vortex, the crew discovers a fissure cutting through the terrain, emitting an ethereal light that refracts in impossible angles. The rift stretches for miles, its edges jagged yet fluid, as if the planet itself reshapes the gap with each passing moment. The glow illuminates particles in the air that drift unnaturally, hovering or darting away depending on movement, creating an otherworldly, disorienting spectacle. The captain studies the rift cautiously. This isn't just a crack, it's a boundary. Something lies beyond, and the planet wants us to notice it. The engineer attempts scans, but instruments fluctuate wildly. Energy readings spike, then disappear, as if the rift absorbs measurement itself. Even light behaves erratically, bending in curves that the eye struggles to trace. As they approach, fragmented shadows dance along the rift walls, echoing shapes of previous expeditions. Some appear to wave or signal, but distortions make interpretation impossible. The medic feels a prickle across her skin, a subtle pressure, like the rift senses intent and evaluates their approach. The planet is aware, interactive, even anticipatory. The geologist kneels at the edge, noting strange crystalline formations, pulsing with synchronized rhythms. It's like a heartbeat, he murmurs. The rift isn't just a divide, it's alive, or part of something alive. Every instinct tells the crew that crossing this threshold is not merely physical, it's psychological. The rift reacts to thoughts, emotions, and presence. A single misstep could destabilize reality itself. The captain takes a deep breath, signaling the crew to proceed slowly. Focus, observe, do not react hastily. Each member steps forward, aware that the rift is a test, a communication, and a warning. Here, the planet reveals its most enigmatic layer, a threshold between perception and reality, control and chaos. Navigating it successfully requires intellect, patience, and the courage to confront the unknown without surrendering to fear or instinct. As they move past the shimmering rift, the crew notices that the ground itself seems to pulse beneath their feet. Rocks shift imperceptibly, forming new ridges and valleys as if breathing. Trails they marked just moments ago are gone, replaced by formations that appear intentional, almost architectural. The planet is no longer merely a backdrop, it is an active participant in their journey. The geologist kneels to examine the soil, finding patterns that shift when unobserved. Minerals align into complex lattices, as though responding to the crew's presence. "It's alive," he murmurs. "Not like animals, but the terrain itself. It senses us, adapts to us." Every step forward requires caution, for missteps might trigger reactions that could trap or endanger them. The medic notes how the subtle movements of the ground affect their balance and orientation. Small depressions open beneath boots, and ridges rise unpredictably, forcing the crew to rely on instincts rather than instruments. The engineer struggles to recalibrate equipment, which now behaves erratically, further emphasizing that the planet's influence extends to both mind and technology. Even the captain senses the change. Every pulse of the terrain feels deliberate, guiding or obstructing. The world itself is a living maze, its patterns designed to challenge perception, endurance, and comprehension. Shadows twist along the moving, ridges and whispers echo from fissures, reacting to footsteps, conversation, and unspoken thoughts. The crew realizes that survival is no longer about avoiding creatures or hazards, it is about understanding the planet's consciousness. Each movement must be measured, each observation scrutinized. Here, the ground beneath them is not static. It is a sentient force, a test of awareness, patience, and adaptability. Misjudgment is not merely dangerous, it is fatal. And in this ever-shifting landscape, the line between observer and participant blurs as the planet asserts control over reality itself. The crew finally reaches the central expanse, a vast chasm pulsing with light and energy, seemingly the planet's heart. The terrain here defies comprehension. Rivers of luminous liquid float above the ground, mountains twist impossibly, and gravity bends in spirals, tugging at every step. The whispers, the fog, the echoes of the lost, they converge here, a symphony of observation and judgment. Every instinct tells the crew that this is the core of the planet's consciousness, the seat of its intelligence, and possibly the final test of their survival. As they approach the glowing center, the creature, the emissary of the planet, appears again, larger, more imposing, and fully aware of their thoughts. It doesn't move like a predator, nor like a human. Its presence is almost omnipotent, radiating understanding and scrutiny. The captain signals caution, knowing any rash action could provoke disaster. The being gestures, or rather the planet's, will communicates, through pulses of light, folding space and memory into their perception. The crew sees not only the echoes of past explorers, but visions of themselves, their fears and regrets, magnified, intertwined, and distorted. The luminous rivers respond to their emotions. Fear causes them to surge violently, blocking paths and threatening to engulf the crew. Curiosity draws them forward, revealing pathways of crystalline bridges that appear only when attention is steady, and doubt dissolves them instantly. The crew realizes the planet evaluates not only physical skill, but mental resilience, emotional control, and adaptability. Survival demands synchronization with its rhythm, a dance of perception and instinct. Tensions peak as one of the explorers loses composure, triggering a violent ripple that twists gravity, flinging a boulder toward the medic. Instinctively, the captain throws himself to shield her. The emissary's pulses intensify, showing the consequences of panic and reaction. It becomes clear. The planet is both teacher and executioner. Every thought, hesitation, and action is observed, analyzed, and judged. The crew finally grasps that they are not intruders. They are participants in a sentient trial, tested for their worth, comprehension, and ability to adapt to a world that exists beyond human understanding. Moments stretch into infinity. The crew aligns their minds, moving deliberately, mirroring the patterns of the planet. Fear is tamed, curiosity focused, and every step becomes an act of communion. The emissary responds, shifting from menace to guidance, opening a path deeper into the chasm, revealing what seems like the planet's memory core, a pulsating matrix of light and thought, storing the consciousness of everything that has ever touched its surface. The crew faces the ultimate revelation. They are in contact with a living archive, a planet whose intelligence surpasses all human comprehension, and whose judgment will determine whether they leave alive or become echoes themselves. With a collective effort, the crew navigates the memory core, attuned to the planet's subtle rhythms. Each pulse of light, each shift in gravity, is no longer a threat, but a signal, a guide to moving in harmony. As they approach the edge of the core, the emissary communicates directly into their consciousness, presenting a choice: leave with the knowledge and understanding gained, forever changed by the planet, or attempt to take what they cannot fully comprehend, risking assimilation into its eternal consciousness. The crew exchanges tense glances. Some want to push further, driven by human curiosity and ambition. Others advocate caution, recognizing the immense cost of interference. The captain makes the final decision. Survival depends on respect and restraint. They move carefully, documenting, observing, and recording everything without disturbing the balance. The planet responds, gradually easing the gravitational anomalies, stabilizing the terrain, and allowing a passage toward the exit. As they depart, the memory core pulses one last time, imprinting visions of the planet's history, its lost explorers, and the intricate intelligence that has shaped every anomaly. The luminous fog, shifting horizons, and gravity wells fade behind them, leaving only a barren landscape that looks deceptively ordinary. Yet the crew knows the truth. Nothing here is ordinary, and they carry knowledge that cannot be fully explained, only experienced. Back aboard their ship, instruments stabilize, and the echoes of the planet vanish. The crew sits in silence, each member grappling with the psychological imprint of what they witnessed. They survived the impossible, yet they understand that the planet remains alive, sentient, and vigilant. Its lessons are indelible, its tests eternal. The captain records the final log, a warning and a testament to the intelligence they encountered, urging future explorers to approach with caution, humility, and reverence. As the ship lifts off, the crew looks back at the planet, its surface calm, yet impossibly alive. They realize survival is not a conquest. It is an understanding of a force far greater than themselves. The world they visited will continue to observe, adapt, and learn, silently waiting for the next intruders, brave or foolish enough to arrive. And with that, they depart, carrying the weight of knowledge, memory, and an encounter that will haunt them forever.